Ever since I first played Marble Madness on the NES as a little kid, I have loved marble games. The Nintendo Switch already has quite a few good ones in the likes of Road to Valhalla or Marble It Up, and of course, the classic Super Monkey Ball. Now this one's not quite as kid-friendly as those other ones, but how does it stack up? I'm Jace from I Dream of Indie, and this is my review of Marble Maid on the Nintendo Switch. We might as well address the elephant in the room right off the bat. Yes, this is a lewd game, but interestingly enough, the lewdness is almost entirely avoidable. I'll come back to that in a second. The gameplay is most similar to Super Monkey Ball in terms of any of the previously mentioned marble games, in that your character is stuck in a little bubble and it's your job to roll around through the levels, avoiding various pitfalls and traps, navigating narrow paths. Your goal is to catch all of the dust bunnies on each level, of which there are 5, and then get to the end before the time runs out. It's really as simple as that. The main game includes 5 separate worlds, all themed around a different room in a house, because the story, if you can say there is one, is that you play a maid who has shown up at a mansion that is very dirty, and it's your job to clean it up. There's not really much more to the story, which is why I didn't bring it up earlier, but ultimately that's what's driving the gameplay. Each of the 5 worlds is split into 10 sub-levels and then 1 hidden level. The entrance to the hidden level can be hidden within any one of the 10 other levels, which gives you some incentive to explore a little bit. If you want to complete the whole game and actually see all of the lewd photo collection, then you do need to find all of the secret levels and collect all the dust bunnies in those levels. As I mentioned before, the lewdness in the game doesn't really come at all as part of the gameplay, but instead comes as you beat levels, and for each level that you collect all 5 dust bunnies, you unlock a new photo in an art gallery. The nice thing about that is if you want to avoid the lewdness altogether, you can just not visit the art gallery and you could still play this game. To my surprise, the game is worth playing. It's actually a really solid marble title. The physics feel good. There's only a couple instances in certain challenging areas where it feels like your ball might be just a little bit too big or a little bit bigger than it appears on screen, but those instances were few and far between. The time element in each level, some levels it adds a lot of stress and difficulty to it, where the timer is very tight, especially if you're trying to find all 5 dust bunnies. Whereas on other levels it felt like the time didn't really mean anything. Difficulty spikes can happen here and there around the time, but if there wasn't any time restrictions, the game would be too simple. At the end of each world, there's also a boss level where you face what she's called the Marble Maid. It's like a dark version of you. In the first couple of worlds, she doesn't really do a whole lot, but she gains new powers as the worlds go on, so by the end, she's a little bit more difficult. Those were by far my least favorite levels. They just didn't have a lot going on. It's generally a big arena, and the whole goal is to just get her to fall off the edge, and you don't fall off the edge. I thought the level design was pretty well done, even though everything looks kind of basic. You know, there's nothing too fancy, but I did like that each world had different challenges based on the theme of the room. So for instance, the dining room had wine bottles that roll back and forth that you have to jump over. In the kitchen, you might run into toasters or burning ovens that'll light you on fire. Another nice touch is after beating the game, you unlock a harder difficulty where there's less time provided from the time power-ups that are strewn about the levels. There's also no checkpoints, which I just realized I forgot to mention before. For every dust bunny you pick up, that creates a checkpoint. So if you fall off the world or get hit by a burning oven in the kitchen, then you'll actually respawn back at the most recent dust bunny that you found. So in any case, if you end up liking this game like I actually do, there's reason to go back and play it in the future and replay the levels, test yourself to play at the harder difficulties. And of course, as mentioned, if you're into the lewd aspect, there's all sorts of reason to continue pushing and unlock the entire art gallery. I should mention that as far as those lewd photos that you can unlock go, they do get pretty dang lewd, but they're really all across the board. There's some where there's no nudity whatsoever, and there's some with pretty much full nudity, except on the Nintendo Switch there is some censorship where her lower region will be covered by a dust bunny instead of on the PC version everything is just fully on display. So be aware if that kind of thing turns you away from a game. Artwork is pretty good, especially in the unlocked photos. The actual game graphics, the audio likewise as well, is pretty forgettable. Again, there's nice touches with the level design in terms of the obstacles, but the backgrounds are very generic. You can tell straight from the trailer it's pretty blocky, and even your character model is very blocky, and they show a close-up at the end of each level. It just doesn't look great. I don't feel that that really hinders the experience a whole lot because it doesn't affect the gameplay. The gameplay itself is still fun. The audio is, as I said, forgettable. A couple of nice tunes in the background. It doesn't get in the way or hinder, but it's also nothing to come back to or be excited about. The sound effects are pretty basic, so on that front, it's a budget title and it's a lewd title, so that's not exactly the focus, and you can tell. Overall, this game isn't going to win any awards, but it's actually a pretty solid marble title. The gameplay is fun. There is some challenge. If you're into marble rollers and you're into lewd games, then this is a win-win because the gameplay is actually good. It's not just a jank, horrible rip of some popular game that is just a cash grab for people that buy lewd games. You can tell that there was definitely thought put in and some real game design work put into this game. I hope you've enjoyed this review of Marble Maid on the Nintendo Switch, but now it's time for me to shout out our indie warriors and indie legends. First, the warriors: Bill, Christian Cruz, Kevalo, Adriana Amato, CJR, PSC, Julian Colbus, Jesse, Raylyn, Marky Mint, Dave Hart, Peekaboo, Lex Noyle, Carmen Red, King of the Hatch, and of course, our indie legends: Jen Rose, Larkison, Mitchell Hall, Peach, Skeptism, C. Coyle, Nathan Moore, Chris Jackson, Mr. W, Blue Francis 14, The Beefarinis, and Business Cody. Thank you so much for everything you do for this channel and continuing to give a voice to the voiceless. If you'd like to join them, check out the description box below.